How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. Coach Javi, your host of this week's Stoppage Time Sundays. So I was going through my last video and I checked some of the comments to see what you guys wanted me to talk about in the next episode of the Stoppage Time Sundays. And one of the comments that was a little bit more popular, and I think the information can apply to a lot of different people, is what's the best route to Division I college soccer in America, in the United States? So I'm going to talk about that a little bit here. But before we get started, I went to the local Mexican bakery and I got myself the truth.
Servicio, prefiere servicio. Llega Pelón. It just had to be Thierry Henry. The script was written.
All right, we're going to get straight into it, my friends. We're ready to go. Cue the little referee here on the side telling us how much time we got. What is the best route to Division I college soccer? I'm going to break this up into the two most popular routes, and that's going to be club soccer and high school soccer. So we're going to break these down, the positives and the negatives, which one you should go with, and then just some things to keep in mind and some things that you should be doing if you want to get to Division I level. We're going to start off with club soccer. Club soccer in the United States is really weird. There's really no one way to do it, but there are a few different routes. Obviously, the one that's the most popular, the one that's most likely going to get you to play Division I college soccer is the Development Academy. If you're playing DA, that means you're playing for one of the best teams in the country usually. Supposed to be the top teams. It's supposed to be academies of pro teams or really well-established clubs. We also have a state organization, so whether you're in Michigan, you play for the Michigan State Youth Soccer Association and you're in one of those leagues. And then you have other things like ECNL, which is also kind of nationwide or regional, at least. For girls getting into college soccer, ECNL is probably the biggest organization where Division I colleges recruit girls from, because it's a very well-established league, very good level. So the positives are that travel makes it easier for coaches to watch. So you are going to be doing a little bit more traveling if you're in club soccer, whether it's DA, ECNL, just your regular state organization. Chances are you might do an out-of-state tournament, or you might do a variety of different tournaments in different areas. And the positive of that is a lot of clubs go to big tournaments like the ones in Disney, the ones in California, the ones in Texas, where a lot of college coaches show up. So if you do play club and you are attending these tournaments, it's a great way for you to reach out to the college coaches before and let them know that you're going to be there so that they could go and watch you. The level is usually a little bit more competitive, and that's good for the credibility. When coaches are watching your highlight video, when they're talking to you and they're looking at your resume, they're going to be looking at what level you're playing at and how well you're doing in that level. So if you're at the higher levels, if you're at DA and you got a lot of statistics, or you're just killing it in DA, obviously because of that level of competition, the coaches are going to know that your statistics and what you're telling them is a little bit more credible. If you're playing at a lower level and you're killing it at a lower level, they might be like, well, the level's not that great anyway, so he can't be that good, or she can't be that good, right? And the last one is usually there's better coaching, because the requirements to coach clubs, especially at the higher levels, are a lot more strict. Coaches have to have higher licenses, and just because it pays more. Coaches make a lot more money off of club than they do in high school. So typically you're going to see your best coaches at the club level. That's just the way it is. I'm not saying you can't be a good coach if you're in high school. I'm not saying you're going to have great coaches because you're in club, but typically the better coaches go to club or DA or those levels because it pays a little bit more and it's a little bit more serious. As far as the negatives, first one is it can get pretty expensive. Very expensive. So if you don't have the financial means to pay for it, you're going to be kind of screwed. Some of these clubs can charge you up to $2,500, $3,000 a year, plus travel, plus hotels when you go to tournaments. It can add up to a lot of money. So if you have the money, great, it's fantastic. If you don't have the money, it kind of stinks, because unless you're like one of the top players in the country, in the region, in the state, they're not going to offer you any financial assistance. Some clubs have scholarships and stuff, but for the most part, you're going to be paying a lot of money. The other negative is you actually end up practicing less, because if you're playing for club, you typically aren't going to be practicing 5 times a week. You might train 3 to 4 times a week, where in high school, you're probably going to be practicing every single day after school, but the quality of the practice is probably going to be a little bit higher, because like I said, you got better coaching, the level of competition is a little bit higher, so the practices and the training sessions are going to be a little bit higher quality than your average high school session. So that's club soccer. Let's go into the high school route. So high school is divided up on the divisions based on your school size. So the higher the enrollment of students at the school, the better the overall competition, typically. So when I was playing in high school in Illinois, we had 3 divisions. I believe my school was in the highest division because we were one of the suburban schools, so it was a big enrollment. If I had played at like a more rural school where, you know, there's not that many kids in town, you play schools that are about the same size. So typically, because the schools are smaller, the level of competition isn't as good because you don't have as many kids to recruit from. It doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, a smaller school can't beat a bigger school, but typically they just break down the competition into divisions where the smallest schools in the state aren't playing against the biggest schools, because typically it would be pretty unfair because the bigger schools are going to be better. That's one thing you can't control. You're kind of just stuck playing for whatever division your school is in, whether you like it or not. If you don't like it, might have to move to a different city, bigger city. So some of the negatives of high school soccer are most Division I coaches aren't heavily looking at high schools. They're looking at the development academy. They're looking at international students. So there is a small chance you might get overlooked because that's not where the Division I, the big schools, are really looking at. Not saying that nobody watches high school soccer, nobody scouts high school soccer, but the top schools, Division I, probably aren't going to be looking at high school soccer. The coaching typically isn't the best. It's typically just a teacher who works at the school making a little bit of extra money from a stipend that they get for coaching, you know, a sport or two. You're not usually going to get your best coaches there. It's a great place to start. I started my coaching career in high school. My very first job as a coach was in high school, but as coaches grow and develop, they usually end up getting out of high school soccer and coaching club. They end up coaching college. They end up coaching professionally. That doesn't mean, like I said, that doesn't mean you don't have good coaches in high school. That just means that by the time a coach gets really, really good, usually they've decided to step away from the high school game. So I'll be honest with you guys, the level in high school isn't as good as the top levels in club. You're there for your friends, for the experience, but most players aren't really looking to play Division I out of high school. So if you aren't completely dominating at the high school level, if you aren't just completely standing out from the rest of the players in high school, chances are coaches are not going to like you very much, because your credibility goes down when you let them know that you've been playing at the high school level and you're not completely killing it. But the positives, we're going to go to the positives. It's much cheaper. Usually you pay like a small sports fee to your school, or it's completely free. When I played in high school, I think I paid like $100 and I could join any sport that I wanted throughout the entire year. So that was the only it was like called a sports fee that I had to pay to the school. So typically it's going to be super cheap. If you don't have the financial means to be playing club, high school soccer might be the way to go. So the other thing as well is, because the level isn't as good, if you are a really good player, you will stand out. For example, Coach Javi, my senior year, I played forward, 27 goals. My senior season, I think I had 11 assists. So I was able to stand out from the rest of the high school population. So when I presented those stats to the colleges, they were a little bit more impressed. Had my statistics not been as impressive at the high school level, probably wouldn't have been very appealing to college coaches. It allows the good players to really, really stand out at that level. The experience is probably more enjoyable at the high school level. You're there with your friends, the people that you see every single day at school. You build really, really good relationships. And because the atmosphere is just a little bit more laid back, it's a lot more fun. You don't just see your friends when you're going to the training sessions. You've probably known these people for a long time. So the experience is very, very fun. I enjoyed the 4 years that I played high school soccer, man. Sometimes I wish I could go back and just have one more year, because it was so fun. It was a great experience. I remember all the road trips we had, the fun times we had on the bus. The experience is good. So if you're not completely sure about the level that you're at and you want to have a good experience, high school is also the way to go. So those are the main differences between high school and club. Last part of this video, what should you be doing? I want to make it clear that regardless of what you decide, you have to be the one to contact coaches. This debate, whether you should play DA, club, high school, it really doesn't matter if you're not the one that's reaching out and advertising yourself and putting yourself out there to these coaches. If you're too lazy to reach out, or if you are too confident that the coaches are going to contact you, I'll tell you right now, it's not going to happen. Ultimately, you have to be honest and realistic about the level of where you're at, because I'll tell you what, all the Division I players, wherever they came from, they were the best player. Whether they came from high school, DA, wherever they came from, chances are they were probably the best player there. If you don't have the money, if you don't have the financial means, which Coach Javi didn't have when he was little, high school might be the way to go. And there's nothing wrong with that. You could still play high school, dominate, and still get recruited to play Division I. That way you don't have to pay $2,500 to $3,000 just to play club, when you're going to be good enough to kill it in high school and then get recruited from there. Lastly, there's no one way. There's no one way to do it. Regardless of what people say, you can play Division I either way. Ooh, that rhymed. So people will comment down on this video below. I'm sure they'll say, oh, club is much better, or high school is much better, or you can't get recruited here. You can get recruited both ways. Whether you play club, whether you play high school, whether you take a year off, you can get recruited. It's just about how you market yourself to these coaches. The level of where you're playing at, whether you decide to go high school or whether you decide to go club, will only matter if you're actually reaching out to coaches, if you're actually doing the work to put yourself out there. That's the end of this video. I hope you guys liked it. It was just, I know I went a little bit, I probably went way over, but again, I do read the comments on these videos. So whatever topic that you guys want to see next, make sure you guys write that down in the comment section. And yeah, I'll try to do a video next time. That's it for me today. Hope you guys like it. Make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you guys follow me on Instagram, Coach Javi Official, so you guys can see my day-to-day. Until next time, and adios, muchachos.